Hi everyone, I'm McKenzie. I'm a senior agricultural communications major, and I'm here to give you my capstone presentation. So for my capstone project, I worked on a documentary called Blood, Bone, and Stone, Mountain Man, Mystic, and Maker. So as some of you may know, Dr. Grant, along with several other students, have been working on a documentary about this very interesting character named Jack Mackey. And as production is supposed to be wrapping up this semester, they needed someone to create a trailer. And so that is what I decided to do for my capstone project. I also worked in conjunction with Courtney Daniel, who was her capstone project was working on the marketing. So we kind of worked hand in hand on creating marketing material for this documentary. And so mine was to create a trailer. So from scratch, I had to pick which clips to use, which music to use, which audio to use, and be able to tell the story of the documentary without giving the whole story away. So I'm going to show you guys what the trailer looks like and then talk a little bit more about it.
That's a powerful mountain. That's the most probably religious or the most powerful mountain in this entire Rocky Mountain range. And I mean from top to bottom.
I was 8 years old. Something come in my room at night. I was standing there, and the next thing I knew, I was flying with them through the air. And then we landed on the top of this mountain. All of a sudden, there was a wind start to blow. And it started blowing, and then it got hotter, and it got hotter. And the next thing I knew,
I was shown what the end of the earth would look like as we know it. Hunted, I've hunted all my life.
God was the master creator. He created the earth, the universe, the stars, the plants, everything around us. If we're created in His image, wouldn't we want to do a little creation as well?
Somebody you can look up to.
No idea how he is that talented, but it has to be from some higher plane, I think.
A lot of these Indian women, everywhere I've been, you're not from here. You're from someplace else. One of them looked at me one day and she said, Jack, he says, you're a reincarnate of Wovoka.
When the going gets tough and you need that certain love.
the most precious thing in this earth to me. He was 3 years old the last time I saw him. When I left, it broke my heart. It pure broke my heart. I didn't know what else to do.
'Cause everybody needs a hero.
The zombies take over and the apocalypse starts tomorrow. I'm gonna find Jack Mackey.
When the going gets tough.
So that was the trailer that I created, and I was very proud of it, and Dr. Grant likes it, the producers like it, and it is now currently up on the website for people to view and to get them ready for the premiere of the documentary, which is on hold right now due to COVID-19, but hopefully as soon as we're able to gather again, it'll be ready for its premiere. So I used a lot of different skills that I learned from a lot of different classes here at AVAC. So now I'm going to take the time to talk about what skills I learned from what classes and how I applied them to this project. So the first two classes I'm going to talk about are the two journalism classes that I have taken as an AdCom major, so Intro to Broadcasting and Writing for Contemporary Media. So I created this project entirely in Adobe Premiere, and I learned how to use Adobe Premiere in both of these classes. I was first introduced to it in Intro to Broadcasting, where I learned the basics of how to use it, and then in Writing for Contemporary Media, I expanded my knowledge even more and learned some new tips and tricks on how to work the program. So without these two classes, I would have been completely lost. Adobe Premiere is pretty hard to figure out. It's a kind of complicated program, and so taking these two classes allowed me to learn how to work that program easily. Something else those classes taught me were these three next things on the list, which are all three elements to creating a great video. So the first one is obviously having visually appealing video. There was a lot of footage to sort through. I was given pretty much everything that they captured on camera. So I had to pick and choose what shots I thought looked best, which would look best on the big screen, which would catch people's eyes. And I learned how to do that through these two classes. Also using natural sound. So in the video, I used the natural sound of the wind is my biggest example. And in these classes, I learned how using natural sound can make a video seem more authentic and can really put the audience member into the setting. So those classes taught me how to use that, and I applied that to that video. And then the use of appealing music and using music to set the tone. So I used two different songs in the trailer. The first one was the heavy drum song, and that was to build suspense, which was the whole point of the first half of the trailer. And then the second one was a more uplifting slow song written by an AVAC student for this film specifically, and I think it helped set a more uplifting tone for the rest of the trailer, and also to give you a better sense of what the film was about. So these two classes really taught me how to make a successful trailer and helped me put those types of video making elements into play. Next two classes I'm going to talk about are two literature classes that I have taken, which were Advanced Composition and Survey of Southern Literature. So in both of those classes, I read a lot of literature, obviously, and they taught me how to tell a great story, analyze characters, write well, and the different types of narration style. And so how I applied that in the trailer is that I had to tell a story, essentially, and I had to know how to do it right. So the first step was a character analysis. As you can tell from the trailer, Jack Mackey is a very interesting character. And so I had to take the time to analyze him and figure out who he was and how I could portray that in a 3-minute video. So that was my first step. And those classes taught me how to do that and to figure out the best parts of a character and really how to exemplify those. Secondly, I needed to pick what type of narration style I was going to have. Third person, second person, and what kind of tone I was going to set. And reading different types of literature allowed me to pick the best tone for the trailer, and I ended up ultimately deciding to kind of have two different tones between the first and second half of the film. And then lastly, writing. So I wrote a lot of essays in that class and developed my writing skills heavily. And I had to do a lot of writing and piecing together for this trailer. I had to literally write words by choosing what words were going to be on the graphic cards, and then also clipping together the audio that people have already said to make a story. So those classes taught me a lot of storytelling skills, and I was able to apply that as I made a story here with this trailer. The last class I'm going to talk about is the publishing process, and that is the class where we publish the literary magazine, The Pegasus. So the biggest skill I probably learned from that class was teamwork. We had a giant team working together to publish that project. And for this trailer, I did not work alone. As I mentioned before, I worked with Courtney Daniel as we worked together to create marketing as a whole for this film. And I also worked heavily with the director, Dr. Grant, and with producers to make sure that the trailer was going in the direction that everybody felt it needed to go into. So this wasn't something I did alone, and that class taught me how to use teamwork when working on a big project. Secondly, that class taught me about marketing. We had to market the Pegasus on social media and whatnot to get people engaged, and so I was able to apply those skills in the trailer and think about how we engage the audience in that class, and then that way I could apply engagement of the audience in the trailer. Thirdly, I did a lot of editorial decision making in that class. I was on the editing team, so I got to choose which pieces of literature or art went into the magazine, and so I was able to use that as I picked which footage and what audio and what music to go into the film. And then lastly, obviously, I learned how to publish a project. So we published the Pegasus as a team, and then I had to publish this trailer. And so that class really taught me how to go from scratch, from having nothing, to having a finished product that you were publishing. And that's exactly what I did with this trailer. Next, I'm going to talk about the problems that I encountered and how I solved them. What were my solutions? So the first problem that I encountered was that I really wasn't aware of the film's goal and theme and overall plot. So I did not work on the on the film prior to jumping on the project to create the trailer. So I was a little lost at first about what the documentary was going to be about. Because one, I had not worked on it, and two, the movie was not completed yet. So I had to take the time to have several meetings with the producers and with Dr. Grant to make sure that I was clear on what story this film was trying to tell and how I could tell that story in the trailer. So really it was just a lot of communication, a lot of meetings to make sure that I knew exactly what this documentary was about. The second problem that I encountered was that I wasn't really sure how to make a good trailer. I have seen plenty of feature film trailers before, but not as many documentary trailers. So how I solved this was a lot of research. I read some books that were recommended by Dr. Grant. I read some online materials, and I just went on YouTube and watched a bunch of documentary trailers and took notes on what I liked and what I didn't like and what I thought was successful and what I thought was unsuccessful. And then I was able to review that literature as I worked on the trailer and applied what I learned to the trailer so I could figure out really what made it good so I could create a successful trailer myself. The next problem was a problem that I mentioned a little bit earlier, was that there was a lot of footage to sort through, and this was one of my biggest hurdles. And once again, how I solved that problem was with communication. I talked to producers to see which footage they thought would be best. So I would go to them and say, hey, I'm going to have a mountain shot here. Can you think of one specifically? They would be like, oh yeah, I remember filming this film. And then I would be able to go and find it, and that would make it a lot easier. So once again, communication was key to solving that problem. And lastly, the last problem is COVID-19. So COVID-19 has affected a lot of people's Capstone's projects. And for me, the biggest problem was that I was using the computers at the school to access Adobe Premiere since my laptop doesn't support it. So the first hurdle was figuring out how I was going to work on it from home, and Dr. Grant was kind enough to lend me his laptop so that I could use Adobe Premiere on that. Secondly, as I was working on the trailer before school was let out, I was meeting weekly with Dr. Grant to talk things through, show him my progress, etc. And then I wasn't able to do that face-to-face anymore. So we had to substitute for Zoom meetings, and I had to utilize Dropbox to drop my drafts in there to let him review it, and then we'd have Zoom meetings for him to give me his edits. So that was a bit of a hurdle because it's just not the same being face-to-face. There was some lagging as we were watching the videos together over Zoom, but we made it work. And then lastly, I had to have a lot of stamina and motivation myself to make sure that I made myself work while I was sitting at home. You know, I could see my bed right there, the kitchen right there. It's really easy to not to want to do work, if I'm being honest, working from home. So I had to push myself to make sure that I completed this project. I was very happy with the outcome, and I'm glad I was able to do that. So overall analysis of this project, I use so many skills from classes that I've taken as a comm major. It's kind of crazy to see all of them put to use for this one project. It made me very proud to have taken these classes and be able to apply them to a real world project. I'm also happy because I feel like I can use the skills that I exemplified in this project in my future career. So my plan right now is to move to New Orleans after I graduate to be a teacher. And I think videos are a great way to engage students. And so if I have a lesson plan where I feel like students are not going to be engaged if I just sit and talk to them, I could perhaps make a video to get them more engaged and to get them to learn the content. So I'm very excited for that. And then also marketing can be used in any career. If I decide not to stay in teaching, all the communication and marketing skills that I learned can be used in any field that I go into. And that is my capstone presentation. Thank you for taking the time to watch and have a great day.